Welcome to the Back Nine Six Pack with Mitch and Justin. Let's roll. Welcome to episode 132 of the Back Nine Six Pack. My name is Justin. I am solo charging into this episode today. Mitch is out. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I will tell you, while Mitch is out, what is back in is sunshine and grass in our neck of the woods. We've had a run of, I don't know, call it 5 or 6 days in the 60, a little bit of rain. Magically makes 14 inches of snow go away pretty quickly. But I'll tell you, as a golfer, there's nothing that a little bit of sunshine and like actually being able to see the grass again will do for your mood. Drastically improve my mood. And look, the 60-degree weather doesn't hurt. It's actually supposed to get up almost to 70 this week for us here. The worst part about the snow, though, as a golfer, is the fact that we're not going to have any snow on the ground, and it's going to be virtually impossible to golf. I mean, my backyard right now is an absolute lake. 14 inches of snow melting. I think we had close to an inch of rain on Sunday night or Sunday morning. It's brutal. You're going to be looking outside. It's going to be sun shining and 68 degrees and not be able to golf. But it's coming. Look, this has now changed my mood where it felt like golf was 10 months from now to it's around the corner. It's around the corner. And what makes me feel that way as well is it's kind of like as soon as we get past Valentine's Day, you can really start to see the light at the end of the tunnel for all things winter, being inside, all that. Because as soon as you know it, we're going to be rounding into March Madness, the Masters, St. Patty's Day. Love St. Patty's Day. Those are all spring activities. So it's right around the corner. You get past Valentine's Day this past weekend, and definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Not a big fan of Valentine's Day. I don't know if anybody else. There felt like more gimmicks this year than ever. Like, and what I mean by gimmicks, the heart-shaped stuff, like food, restaurants, gimmicks to get people to come in. My kids fell for a gimmick. We went and had heart-shaped pizza on Saturday. We fell for it. We did. We fell for the advertising, but it felt like there was so much more of that this year. Maybe it's because we fell for it. Like I just kind of started seeing more of it, but a lot more gimmicks out there this year. And it was funny, kind of made me think, I saw this guy do the video about Valentine's Day, and it was like, if you go out on the 13th, you're the side piece. You go out on the 14th, you're the girlfriend. If you don't go out at all, you're the wife. So congratulations to the people that maybe didn't go out and celebrate Valentine's Day because kids' activities and all that. Look, you're the real winner in this. You're the wife, right? You're not the side piece, no longer a girlfriend. So shout out to those women. Other than that, a couple weeks have gone by. Lots happened in that time. One, I had a kid birthday. No big birthday party. She turned 12. That's next weekend. But the golf show in Cincinnati was last weekend. And I'll tell you what, every year it seems to get better and better. We redid our convention center here in Cincinnati. And by the way, they knocked it out of the park. I think it's light years better than what it was. But the golf show this year was fantastic. I don't know who puts it on. I feel bad because I want to give them credit, but it was good. It was really good. It seemed bigger this year. They've got some fun games. They got like a par 3 that you can hit, softer golf balls into the green. You win a round of golf if you get it inside the circle. Shatter the glass. They had like a long putt, but then they had boosts. And what I noticed about this year, they had boosts for trips that you're like actually like for someone from Cincinnati, like you're actually going to take, right? So there were some people from like Indiana, Tennessee, things like that. Like in the past, they'd be like, fly to Bahamas for a golf trip. Like, not going to do that as a dad, right? Like that's not in the cards right now. Maybe in 20 years, possibly. But the people that were for the travel bureaus, I thought were well placed. The only thing really cool that happened when I went, Ran into Merrill Hodge. Kind of cool. Dude is jacked, by the way. He's like 67 years old. Still looks like he could play in the NFL. Like, it was pretty amazing, actually. Kind of terrifying also to know that if he looks like that at 67, what these guys actually look like in their prime. But no, the golf show was fantastic. We went down there with my kids, just my kids and me. Had a great time. Walked around. My kids wanted to buy a golf cart, which was not happening. Did buy a golf bag for my oldest. Got a really good deal. They also had some really good deals in the shops down there. So if you didn't go this year, make sure you go next year. Absolutely. Cincinnati Golf Expo. Again, maybe next show I'll credit to who actually puts it on, but was a great time. Before we pivot here, I do want to remind everybody, subscribe, rate, review our podcast here. Helps us out. Takes 5 minutes. If you want to write give us a 5-star and talk crap about me doing a solo episode tonight, have at it. All right. So the big event that we missed in our little break here, every other week episode was the Super Bowl. Didn't miss much. Last 2 Super Bowls have sucked. They have absolutely sucked. Not good games. Not a lot of, interesting things to talk about from the game standpoint. Last year was a blowout. This year we didn't have a touchdown till like the end of the third quarter or halfway through the third quarter. All field goals leading up to that. But shout out to Sam Darnold. I said 2 weeks ago, there's no way they're going to let Sam Darnold win a Super Bowl. I was 100% wrong. He didn't do anything amazing, but he didn't mess it up like I thought he was going to. He had his chances. There probably should have been 2 or 3 interceptions in the first half. He kind of got away with them, and the Seahawks ended up winning. But good for Sam Darnold. He started out getting drafted by the Jets. Death penalty. Kind of wanders around. Ends up with the Vikings. Not had the best run of quarterback. Plays really well there. They decide that their drafted young quarterback is the future and kind of let him go on his way. He goes to the Seahawks, wins a Super Bowl next year. And I saw the perfect kind of people talking about this. They're like, Jets fans are probably genuinely happy for him. Hey, look, we know we suck. We're glad you found a new home. Won a Super Bowl. Like, congratulations. Vikings fans got to be pounding their head into a wall right now. Like, the fact that they let this guy walk, stuck with 9, J.J. McCarthy, he goes the next year after they had a good year great year last year. Goes the next year and wins a Super Bowl with another NFC team. Tough break for Vikings fans. They all suck. I don't really care. I'm glad it happened to them, but good for Sam Darnold. It's always cool to see a good comeback story like his. Outside of that, commercials were okay. There was a couple of them. Thoroughly enjoyed the Pepsi and the polar bears. Thought that was glad the soda wars are back for us that, grew up in the 90s. The soda wars, 80s, 90s soda wars were really big between Pepsi and Coke. Glad that's back. I thought that commercial was really, really good. A couple other ones were pretty good. I think the problem is like they just spend it's like I think $8 million for a 30-second commercial. Just insane. I just don't think it leaves much room for creativity or anything like that. I'm assuming at some point, I don't know how soon all of these commercials for the Super Bowl are going to be AI. Because you got to imagine the cost on those Super Bowl ads are going to go up. And there's literally going to be no money left for creativity. So they'll all be AI at some point. I don't know when. Maybe they already are now. I have no idea. Again, commercials, meh. Look, I'm not going to hit too much on the halftime show. I'll say it's not my cup of tea. I think the real losers in the halftime show, I think just this is in general now, is it's built for TV. So if you're like at the game, and I kind of saw this, like you're at the game, it's not a concert anymore. Like it's a production for television. And I can't imagine like paying all that money and like maybe it's someone you really want to see and then you kind of get that. I think that kind of sucks now. Again, not my cup of tea. I would assume that someone in the NFL has data that was like, hey, this could pull in new viewers, because that's really what it's about, right? Their target audience is obviously like certain types of music, but they're not going after the people they already know they have. Like they're going after the people that they think would want to watch football. That's it. But not my cup of tea. I didn't really watch a ton of it, maybe a little bit, just kind of had it on in the background, but maybe next year, I don't know. Maybe, dude, I vividly remember one of my favorite halftime shows was Prince. Like it was awesome. Like, and it was a concert, right? Like it wasn't made for television. I think we need to get back to that. Like at least make it a concert, not this built for TV thing. I think that's kind of lame, to be honest. And I'll tell you, if I went to a Super Bowl and it was someone I wanted to see and they like built the production for TV and I barely got to see the person, I would be pissed. So but that's enough on the halftime show. Again, not my cup of tea, but is what it is. I think we need to talk, though, about what could have been for the Super Bowl. I don't think the right AFC team, clearly the right AFC team was not there, right? It took until the Super Bowl for the Patriots to get exposed, per se. Had the easiest schedule in the NFL. Cakewalk would be putting it lightly, probably through the playoffs. I mean, their first game was definitely the toughest to get to the Super Bowl. But you had a CJ Stroud that in bad weather, and he does not play well in bad weather. It is what it is, but that game wasn't very tough. And then they go to Denver with Denver losing Bo Nix. But I'd pay to see a Denver led or Bo Nix led Denver play the Seahawks. I think that game would have been fantastic. I think it would have been. I shouldn't say fantastic. It definitely would have been better what we got. The Patriots, Drake May, maybe they'll be back. It seemed a little premature. I definitely think, and that was part of the problem. But I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, we got to blame somebody for this. Can't blame the NFL. They don't really have any say in that. I mean, they obviously, maybe some people think they do, but they don't really have any say in it. But I'm like, someone's got to take the blame for the Super Bowl. I think the Seahawks definitely were the best team. They pretty much were the best team all year. Rams had a run there in like the middle of the season that people were like, man, they're going to be hard to beat. Seahawks ended up beating them. Me as a Packers fan, again, they might have been there at the end playing the Seahawks had they stayed healthy. I don't know if I just don't think the Packers would have had the secondary to probably make it past the Seahawks. It's got to be on the AFC side. So that's what I'm saying. I think we got the right team on the NFC side. I think we got to blame a team on the AFC side with all the quarterbacks. No one wanted to see Kansas City. We're not going to blame them. No one wanted to see that again. So I really think it comes down to two teams that we got to blame for what we got. I'm blaming the Bengals, and I'm blaming the Bills. This year, of all years, you get a Kansas City team that's clearly aged. They had some injuries, but they weren't good because they're too old. Like that's part of their probably rebuilding process is getting younger, getting fresher blood in there. So you have no Kansas City. You have a Baltimore team that didn't even make the playoffs, struggled all year. Those two teams right there, you're like, for sure, like the Bills and Bengals had to take advantage of that, right? Like they're out. Their kryptonite's gone. Excuse me. Unfortunately, neither of them took advantage of it. Bills lose a heartbreaker in Denver. Bengals just, look, Joe Burrow was out, but they had their chances, even with Flacco in, to take advantage of just a couple games that probably would have got them into playoffs and see what happens, right? With Joe Burrow, obviously I don't know, but I don't know their defense was going to be good enough to get back to that point. But again, Joe Burrow's first Super Bowl, worst offensive line in the NFL. I'd call them an opportunistic defense. They weren't the greatest, but they were definitely opportunistic. So maybe he does make a run. But I think it comes down to, like, we're blaming the Bills for this. We're blaming the Bills for this Super Bowl because they made the playoffs. They stayed relatively healthy. Again, defense was meh. But, if Josh Allen's who everybody's saying Josh Allen is, there's just certain things you're going to have to get past, right? Like weaknesses that you've got to fill the void for, like every great quarterback does. So I've narrowed it down. We are blaming the Bills for the Super Bowl we got. Bo Nix got injured. It is what it is. But I think the Bills, for what we've seen this year or what we got in the Super Bowl, all of that weight falls on their shoulders. We are blaming the Bills for the second crappy Super Bowl we got in a row. All right, that's enough on the Super Bowl. I could probably go on and on. But maybe, hopefully, next year we get a better Super Bowl. That's all we can ask. Just a more interesting one. Just something a little closer that you don't kind of tune out, midway through the third quarter. There was golf this weekend. I'm not going to go all the way back the weekend before. Waste management. It was... I just real quick, I want to hit on where I stand in the waste management. I think it's a fantastic tournament. I think it's the Firebirds that put it on in Phoenix. Look, it's the stadium and all that. That's really cool. The fans have literally reached a point of, like, this is out of control. The videos I saw. So for that reason, like, we got people making noises on the guy that's on 18 that's, in the lead. Like, it's just Bush League. Like, that, I'm out on that tournament for now until they change. One, not letting 500,000, I don't know, 250,000 people into a golf tournament. That's their first problem. Second problem is, I'm not usually this guy, but we got to shrink the game. Like, these people going to this tournament are just not for me. Not for me. But that's enough on the waste management. But this weekend we were at Pebble, AT&T, and I want to start out that I like Colin. Okay, and congrats to him getting. It's been a long 2 years for him getting his first win in 2+ years. He's just not my cup of tea. He just isn't. Like, I like a little. I don't know. Like, he's just not for me, right? But, like, he's a great player. I thought it was kind of funny that Pebble posted a video of him after, his media duties and all this stuff. Him and his wife went into the pro shop and, like, did what everybody, like, one of us would do, right? Just spends crazy amounts of money on merchandise. I think his wife got, like, a teddy bear or something. Like, they just go in, blow a ton of money after he wins. I thought that was pretty cool. Don't get to see the personal side of Colin much. So I thought that was a pretty cool insight. But other than that, like, the leaderboard was kind of awesome. It really was. I don't know the last time we've had a leaderboard like the one we got this weekend. Just really, like, we've always kind of got like one or two, but, like, we kind of had like top 20 guys. It was like, okay, and there were big names that kind of like made runs at some point in the week. They might not finish there, but they made runs up the leaderboard. So congrats to Colin, but let's move on to that. So we got a little peek into Jordan Spieth. Played well Thursday, played well Friday. I'm pulling up the leaderboard here, but me and Mitch are texting And it's like, look, we're noted Spieth fans. But the way that I described it is it's majestically terrible. That was like the first thing that kind of came to my mind. This guy is hitting it all over the planet. Saturday, it's onto the beach on 18. Famous photo from Saturday of him climbing back up the wall to get back into the fairway. It's just majestically terrible. It's like at no point do you think he's going to shoot under par, and then you kind of turn your head, like when he's playing well, and you turn back around, and it's like, oh wow, it's like he shot 65 today. It's like didn't look like a 65, but it was, and that's entertaining to me. I loved watching him a little bit this weekend, as much as we could, as much as they showed him. It's a whole nother story, but it was fantastic watching him play, and the game needs him back. They really do. Just for that reason alone, the entertainment value of him on a golf course playing golf is like there's no one that rivals it from an actual entertainment standpoint. Kind of taking a ride down the leaderboard here. So we got Colin Wynn. Sepp Straka played well this week. He finished one back of Colin. Minwoo Lee tied for second. There were times this week it felt like maybe he's going to win. Just didn't quite have enough. Tommy Fleetwood had a chance coming down 18. I think he had like a 30-foot eagle putt to get to 20. Actually, that was to get to 21. So Colin would end up winning anyway, but he had his chances. Scotty's in this new mode of let's barely make the cut, spot guys 10 shots, and then backdoor a top 5. He T4s again this week at minus 20 after what looked like he was not going to make the cut again, which is what he did at the Waste Management. But had 3 eagles on Sunday. First time he's ever done that on the PGA Tour. It was pretty. It looked like for a while with the wind kind of picking up that he got into the clubhouse. Is like this 20 under might be enough. So shout out to those guys that kind of came in and finished strong, kind of keeping him out of the winner's circle. But Sam Burns, another good week. Akshay going into Sunday with a lead, just never got it going on Sunday. Promising things from him. Very, very promising. I'm a big Akshay guy. Other notable, Hideki coming off falling apart at the Waste Management. He comes in T8. Rory, after his win last year, T14s this year. Ricky Fowler was up on the leaderboard for quite some time. Unfortunately, like if you didn't shoot 8 under, 9 under on the weekend, you were falling back with the soft conditions. But Ricky with a T19 seems to be playing better. But yeah, I thought a pretty good leaderboard, for the most part. Kind of had a little of everything. Your Fleetwood, your Scheffler, Morikawa wins. Straka's kind of becoming a household name. Sam Burns is back up there. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. One of my favorite tournaments here. I think this week of the West Coast swing is my favorite, but it's always good going back to Pebble. And it's crazy. And this is my next point. The amount of hate Pebble gets. I don't get it. I've never played there. Full disclosure, I've never played the golf course from what I've seen on TV. Real small greens, obviously. But the scenery, things like that. Holes like Torrey, the shot on Torrey is like every hole seems the same. I don't get that from Pebble. So I don't know, but there's a lot of hate. Now, I can understand if your hate is coming from, look, this course doesn't have the teeth it once did. It's not long enough. Guys, new technology, guys are hitting it further. The par 4s that used to play a little longer, guys still have pitching wedge, 9-iron wedge, 50, 56 into. I get where, all the par 5s are pretty much reachable. I get that hate from that standpoint, but from an architecture standpoint, setup, like I don't think you can ask for a better tournament. Like the scenery, and maybe it's like Spyglass kind of overshadows Pebble a little bit. I could see that maybe being something, but I don't get the Pebble hate. I really don't. Is it different from most new golf architecture and things like that? They don't really build courses like Pebble anymore. I guess that's where it comes from, but I, for one, love Pebble. Again, one of my favorite weeks on the PGA Tour. Don't really know where that hate comes from. The only other notable thing that I saw this weekend, so we're sitting there watching on Sunday, guys are coming through 18, wind's starting to pick up. Sam Burns was 2 back going into 18. Reachable par 5. He's, at this point, realized like he's got an eagle, right? Like just to even have a chance. He hit iron off the tee. To me, and Sam is in this situation, right? Like he's made his money. He's made some money. He's not got status issues like, hey, I need the, top 5, whatever, even though this is a signature event, it's a smaller field. So it's like, if you're not playing to win, like, what are you doing? You don't need the money. You don't need the FedEx points. Like, what are you doing? Like, I guess I just don't understand the decision knowing you have to eagle. I don't think iron gives you the best chance to win and make eagle and tie for the lead. It was a very weird decision from Sam Burns. I thought it was like, it's like watching, it's like watching a coach punt from like the other team's 39-yard line. It's like, what are you truly gaining from that? And then it was like, you just watch them hit iron. It's like, it doesn't do anything. I think he ends up parring the hole. It's like, so you punted from the 39 and you kicked it into the end zone, essentially is what happened. It was a weird decision. Again, I don't know where it came from because like he doesn't need the money. It's not like, man, if I bogey, I'm going to lose out on like an additional $75,000. What is that? That's nothing to him. So it was a weird decision. I thought it was like just super weak. I hated it. I was like, what? Because the last hour of TV coverage was phenomenal. Like wind's picking up, watching these guys have to hit shots on 17, hit shots on 18. Man, it was great TV, and then you just see Sam Burns get up there and poke an iron down the fairway. It was a very weird situation. Especially again, like kind of must watch TV, and you see this guy kind of lay up. The only other thing I had from the tournament was the Jacob Bridgman breakdown on 18 it was a tough watch. Played relatively well. Still T8, but hits the second ball in the water or hits it onto the beach, down on the beach, tries to play it, hits a rock, kicks down into the water. Then he decides, okay, well, I'm going to go back to where it crossed, goes back to where all of this while poor Colin, like I did feel bad for him in this. Poor Colin just sitting back in the middle of the fairway, waiting to hit this shot to kind of try to birdie and ice the tournament. And it felt like Colin Morikawa was in that fairway for 3 hours, like waiting for Jacob Bridgman to get out of the way. Kind of cool. It was like, well, kind of cool in a moment of like, there's so much more that goes into golf, and especially tournament golf, than like just getting up there and hitting your ball. You kind of run into some hurdles along the way that have nothing to do with what you're trying to do out there. But shout out to Colin for kind of waiting it out. And I think he even said something. He's like, I felt like I was out there for an hour. And he might have been in the fairway for an hour because it took a long time. Jacob Bridgman had to go pretty far back to hit his drop. I want to say he had to go back probably 170, 180 yards to hit his drop. So So shout out to Colin for kind of, keeping it together in that waiting period. But the Jacob Bridgman thing, trying to hit it off the beach, we had a lot of beach balls this weekend. So again, adds the entertainment to Pebble. There's not a lot of places you get that. So again, kind of ties back into I don't get the Pebble hate. There was another golf tournament this weekend, and for those that watch, listen to our show, watch it, YouTube, we don't talk much live. But when something like this happens, as it did this weekend, we got to talk about it. So they're at Adelaide, which, by the way, is probably their best event from a fan standpoint. People that actually come to the event, it's got to be their most attended, I would guess. I don't know the numbers on that. They're in Adelaide, in Australia. Pretty good leaderboard going into the last day. I think Rahm was leading, or he's tied for the lead. You had Bryson up there. You finally had Anthony Kim. And look, I think Mitch is an Anthony Kim fan. I've always loved Anthony Kim. I thought the best thing that Liv did prior to, even after signing all these other guys, was bring him back. It was kind of like their only card to play to kind of punch back at the PGA Tour, essentially. So they're at Adelaide this weekend. Anthony Kim shoots a final round. I don't want to misspeak because it was that good. Shoots a final round 63 to pass Rahm, beat out Bryson. I think he ended up winning by 2. He's like minus 23, I want to say. And the scene on 18 was so cool. I mean, you could see, kind of like when Rory won the Masters, like you could see like the relief in his face and like all the hard work that kind of led to that moment, right? Getting his first professional win in 16 years. Last win he had was the Shell Houston Open in 2010. And then obviously the well-noted, we don't have to go back through everything, the well-noted story between really those 16 years. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, suicidal thoughts. And then to kind of get a second chance after turning his life around to go play on Live probably wasn't the most popular decision amongst people that probably are his fans. But if you were anything like me, like you just wanted to see him play golf again. Like it's really kind of where everybody, at least where I stood as an Anthony Kim fan, just wanted to see him hit a golf ball again. Goes out, wins. The scene on 18 with his wife and his daughter, and kind of rehashing like all the comebacks are possible and all that. I think it might be it probably is the best Live moment that they've had since starting the league, and I don't think it's even remotely close. It has to be. This guy coming back, beats out John Rahm, beats out Bryson, who's right there, who just won a major, less than 2 years ago. Has to be their best moment. And what's funny, and I kind of thinking about him and watching the videos of after he won technically on Saturday night here in America, Sunday over in Australia, is, Liv went out and signed all these guys, right? They got big names. You got the Rahms and the Brysons and all this and Phil, But what's crazy is the one of all those guys, Anthony Kim still moves the needle enough for people that maybe don't like Liv to finally like pay attention to Live golf. It's after all, look, they've got gigantic names part of Live golf, but Anthony Kim is still the needle. It's amazing, and I'm happy for him. I'm kind of excited to see where it goes from here. I really hope his plan would be to try to qualify for U.S. Open. Don't know where that kind of sits in his schedule and noted like recovery system that he kind of has and all this. But God, I don't know what I'd pay to get him into the U.S. Open or another major, but I'd kill. But it's just funny after all these years, all these big names that they have over there that Anthony Kim's essentially the needle that kind of got people to pay attention to live golf that normally wouldn't. So congratulations to AK. Hopefully not the last one this year. So we're kind of rolling right through this show. We're going to go to the patio, though. And gosh, I really wish I could have sat out on the patio today. It was perfect outside. But we're going to take a little bit of I was kind of teetering on this. A little bit of like a serious note, kind of. I read a very interesting, and again, I'm terrible at this. Like, same with the golf show, I could at least give people credit. But I read an article a couple of days ago. Guy wrote an article about, like the hardest stages in life. I know why it hit with me. I know because we'll get to that in a second. I know why it hit with me, but kind of talks about the stages of life and kind of went through, your younger years and then, like that 12 to 18 years, when you're going through middle school and high school, and then the 18 to like 22, 23 when you're, going through college or whatever you're kind of doing in that point of your life. Most of us probably, going to college this day and age. And they talked about like, 23 to 30, kind of that, like you're trying to find your way, new job, or trying to start a career. Everybody kind of takes a different route. And he kind of goes through all of life, right? And then he kind of breaks it down of like, okay, like what stage of life is the hardest? And essentially what he came to is he said that being anywhere between the years of 30 to 50 are by far the hardest. Noted some polls that he had given, or not he had given, but he had found for people's happiness in different age groups and things like that. And overwhelmingly, the people from 30 to 50 years old, I think some of the polls were like 30 to 45. Those people were overwhelmingly the most unhappy or unfulfilled or, weren't happy with their situation or whatever, right? Just not happy. And, he's obviously in the articles digs in, starts, trying to think of why, right? Why, essentially you're now an adult, right? You probably are starting to make money that, you've never had in your life, right? Especially if you're like working up from where your parents were, you're probably making more money than you ever have in your life. So why are people so unhappy? And it hit me. Like, so essentially, his theory behind it is a couple things. Number one, in this period of life, people have kids, young kids that are aging out of their life, right? Like, kind of, they don't need mom and dad anymore. Like that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of parents. But then you have like the people in that age group that have super young kids. Social life, pretty much non-existent, right? You're at sporting events. You're living your life probably 90 to 95% not for yourself, which is much different than the time period prior to that, right? Like college and leading up to when you have kids, like you're pretty much living your life for yourself and probably for a significant other that you're with, if you have one. So he's like, you have the kid sector, right? Like this is where people have kids. Doesn't matter the age, whether they're phasing out of their life, going to become empty nesters, or you have young kids. It's tough. Like, love my kids to death. But, this past weekend, like, I might have had 2 hours to myself to do what I wanted, right? Like that, it's not selfish. People would feel overwhelmed with that, right? Like, I think it's a very normal thing. So that was the first factor. The second factor is just pure life changes outside of kids. And this is the one that kind of hit me because I'm going through this myself, right? Like this is a real thing. So the first thing, part of that is you start losing friends unexpectedly. Obviously, if you're 30, I'm going to be 36 here in 2 weeks. You do lose friends early, just as it's part of life, unfortunately. And in this stage of life, like things just kind of start happening early, and it sucks. But you start losing friends, people friends from work that are relatively the same age as you. Like you do lose friends, they that pass away, and that's part of it. The other one that hits you is, you're in a point of life where you start realizing that your parents are not young anymore. Shout out to Kim and Graham. My parents are not young anymore, right? They're in their 60s. Mom's a little younger, but they're in their mid to the high 60s. So you start seeing your parents age, right? Some of us that might be, shout out to my mom and dad. They're pretty self-sustainable still. But you start taking, you get into the 40s and 50s and maybe you're taking care of a parent. It could be tough. It could be really tough. You start losing parents, unfortunately. And that's where it really hit me, right? Like you just don't, there's so many life changes, tons of life changes. And I just thought it was such an interesting article. I had to bring it up. It's funny as we sit here and talk about aging parents, like the happiest people were like in their 70s and 80s, which is, it's funny because I know a lot of guys like that. They're the happiest people in the world. The happy, like the end is coming and they're just like, dude, this is awesome. Like playing pickleball, playing golf. So it's just it's an interesting outlook on things. But yeah, so if you're in that age group, which I think most people that listen to this are probably in my age group, some older, but I'll try to find the article and post it somewhere, but it's a great article. Read it. Kind of gives you perspective on where people are at or in their lives, like coworkers and people you run into, people you meet, like, if they're not like overly happy, like maybe they're going through some stages of life that kind of fall in the middle here for most of us. But didn't mean to take a serious note there, but I thought it was such an interesting article. It hit me. I thought it was a good perspective on a lot of people that listen to the show's lives. So, and like I said, I'll try to find that article and post it somewhere that you can access it because I think it's definitely worth a read. And one last thing, Mitch is out this week, and I couldn't go the whole show. Didn't want to do it in the beginning, but keep Mitch and his family in your thoughts. We love you, big guy. Miss you this week, and hopefully have you back soon. But Mitch unfortunately lost his dad this past week, so keep him in your thoughts. If you're a praying person, pray for him. But we miss him. I miss him. And can't wait to have him back. But other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Back 9 Six Pack. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Back 9 Six Pack for all your content needs. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.